All right, so Tara, welcome back. Great to have you back on the show. So let's just jump right into it because I know the time goes by quick. And then I want to be clear about something, that this is not a gotcha question, but today you are a vital part of a new project called the Seneca Project. Remind me again what this is, why you were ever a Republican, why would a strong, intelligent Black woman be attracted to conservative politics?
Oh my gosh. Well, Michael, talk about just like starting the show off with the easy questions.
Boom, boom.
I know, right? I mean, okay. Well, look, first of all, thank you for mentioning Seneca Project. We just launched this week. We had a really successful debut. Thank you to MSNBC and Nicole Wallace for showing our debut ad called A Time for Choosing. And if folks want to check that out, it's over at our Twitter at Seneca Project US. Please follow us and check out our ad. My co-founder, Michelle Kinney, and I took a look at the political landscape earlier this year and realized that there was really no infrastructure, political infrastructure, talking to middle of the road women. And the moderate women, the right of center, left of center, the moderate independent women, no one was really talking to them. Everything was focused on kind of the fringes or like issue specific. So it was either just about abortion or it was like just moms for liberty or, there was nobody just talking like regular women. And we saw the Nikki Haley voter phenomenon starting to gain traction, even though she dropped out of the race, that Republicans were still voting for her as a protest vote against Donald Trump. And so a light bulb went off and we said, these are persuadable, gettable voters, particularly the right of center women. And I mean, as I was one of them for a very long time, and they need a permission structure. They need to know it's okay to vote for Joe Biden. Donald Trump is not an option. Sitting this election out is not an option. And women's rights are literally under assault daily. It is not just about abortion anymore. It's bigger than that. It's literally women's healthcare choices and the criminalization of this and the expansion now into IVF, into contraception. Like, we knew they weren't going to just stop at Dobbs. So we decided to form the Seneca Project. The name obviously comes from a nod to the historic significance of the birthplace of the women's rights movement at Seneca Falls, New York. And how that was a coalition effort. Women got tired of being treated as second-class citizens back in the 1840s and said enough is enough. And they built a coalition of women and of male allies as well, of Black Americans at the time, like Frederick Douglass, and said, we're going to put forth that we should have the same rights as everybody else. And they put together this convention of the Declaration of Sentiments. And the right to vote was one of them, but not the only one. It was about lots of things: bodily autonomy, financial freedom, all of these things that women did not enjoy as full citizens in America at the time. It took 70 plus years to get the right to vote, and only some women got the right to vote. Black women didn't get that. It wasn't an equal application until the 1960s. But so we realized that we are back at a time now in America where women are being treated as second-class citizens. A right has been taken away, and it is a time for choosing. Women, American women I think are sick and tired of being treated this way. And there's a binary choice in this election. And that binary choice is between President Biden and Donald Trump. Who do you think is going to make decisions and appoint people and support policies that are in the best interest of you and your daughter's, sister's, mother's future? It's Joe Biden, and moderate women need to understand what is at stake, and no one's really talking to them. So Michelle and I started the Seneca Project because it's led by women. We're telling women's stories. We welcome male allies like you and others who are girl dads that are also upset about what's going on. You don't want to see women being criminalized for making healthcare decisions, or their doctors, or any of those types of things. And we are, there's a time crunch. We don't have time to kind of mess around here. We've got 5 months before the election, but we really wanted to give moderate women an opportunity to tell them, listen, it's up to you. It's going to come down to 5 states. You live in them. What happens in November impacts all of us as women, and that we need to come together in solidarity in order to beat back this MAGA extremism to try to take women back into the 20th, early 20th century when women didn't have the same rights. So that's how we came about. And again, we're at Seneca Project US on all our socials, and senecaproject.us is our website. And so now how I became a Republican, all that, we've had those conversations before. I quit the party in November of 2020 after Donald Trump refused to concede the election because it became now a constitutional crisis. And I said, well, there's no hope at all. I stayed in the party to see if I could change it from within. But after that, I said, no, I can't do this anymore. And I became an independent. And so I'm still, trying to make up for the sins of the past. And I constantly re-examine what role I played in the mess that we're in now, unwittingly, really. As a conservative, I believed in small government and freedom and strong national defense and low taxes and law and order, those things. I come from a law enforcement family. All those things are out the window. The Republican Party that I belong to doesn't exist anymore. And it presents an existential fascist threat to our democracy moving forward, and it should burn to the ground.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
It sure does. But let me ask you this question, because you keep referring to them as moderate women. That's who you want to speak to, moderate women.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused about it. Why not to all women? Because this is not just any right that they're taking away. They're basically telling you as a woman that you're not smart enough, you're not competent enough, you're not capable enough in order to make your own reproductive decision-making decisions. Mm-hmm. And I say to them, the hell does a man know about a woman's reproductive decision-making thoughts, right? I mean, yes, it takes 2 to tango to make the baby. But with all due respect to men out there, it is the woman who's carrying. I would say she's by far the more important of the two in the relationship. And for Donald Trump and any Republican male to turn around and to tell a woman that you should not have the right to decide, to me, is fundamental. And I don't understand why there is a single woman out there that's willing to support a man who's telling you that you should not have reproductive decision-making right over your body. I don't understand. How do you support somebody like that?
Yeah. I mean, look,
and I don't care what party you're in. That's
true. And, we say that a lot about other people who support Donald Trump, who were like, why would you support this person who literally doesn't have your best interest at heart and couldn't care less about you? And yet you think that making this decision to support him and put him in power benefits you. I mean, cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug. It happens every day. However, why are we targeting moderate women? Particularly right of center women. And like I said, left of center women also need to be energized. And we don't want them disengaged because they think, oh, Biden doesn't need our help, or it doesn't matter, or we're upset because we didn't get everything we wanted from the president, this administration. Like, no. President Biden needs the coalition of everybody who he had before. You guys matter too. You need to be engaged, make sure you support the president. But the moderate right of center women, the reason why we're targeting them is because we come from that world, so we know how to speak to women in a way that's relatable and authentic. And we're not your typical political organization where it's just getting the women's vote as a means to a political end here. I mean, yes, that's true. We have an election to win, but it comes from a personal place where it does impact us all as women. And our advisory committee is bipartisan. We have women like Senator Barbara Boxer, who I could tell you I probably didn't agree with on anything policy-wise when she was a senator from California and I was a Republican. But she felt compelled to join us, and I was glad to welcome her because we are all in this together as women. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. We are all impacted by this rolling back of our rights. So, that's important. We have Congressman Denver Riggleman, who is a former Republican girl dad, like I was saying, we welcome male allies that understand that, hey, we have a role in this too, as a certain responsibility that we should be voting in the best interest of our daughters and wives and sisters, So we have a wide spectrum of people involved with us, but the moderate women, they're the ones in the battleground states that will make or break this election. This election, women
would make or break this entire election.
Yes,
today.
That's true.
There are more women in America than there are men. In fact,
that's true, and voted higher rates than men.
That's right. And if all women would turn around and acknowledge the simple fact that Donald Trump is patting himself on his diaper every single day, standing in front of a crowd, these rallies that consist of women, patting himself on the diaper and saying, thanks to me, Roe versus Wade has been overturned, 50 years stare decisis. I mean, I don't understand what they're thinking. And if all women would turn around and say, you know what, this is just the beginning, because the overturning of Roe does not just affect the overturning of the Dobbs decision does not just affect the Roe decision, but it affects Bivens, it affects Obergefell, then there's the other one, Blasingame. There's dozens of other issues, same-sex marriage, interracial marriage.
They've said it. I mean, the justices said that this opens up now opportunity to re-examine some of these other cases where the same legal philosophy was used, which is a scary prospect. I mean, Americans should pay attention to that. There are larger, more established organizations that speak to women's issues in general. We are very laser focused as the Super PAC on this election. We also have a C4 that we are developing as well, called the Seneca Democracy Institute. Initiative. That will be the longer term play. But right now, we have to be the Navy SEALs laser focused on this mission to move the persuadable voters. See, all women don't need to be persuaded necessarily. There's enough women in those other areas that are already motivated. They're going to go out and vote. We don't need to talk to them. We already got those people. We need the persuadable. We're talking to the persuadable moderate women in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, North Carolina, those places.
The independents.
Yes, because that we've got to get them to go from the fear to outrage to action, because we know that what's going on, they're not happy about it. They're looking for a place to go, and they're looking to know that it's okay to vote for Joe Biden. If you've been a lifelong Republican, it's all right. No one knows who you voted for. Right. The ballot box is one of the few sacred places where women still have privacy, and no one can take that away from them. No one knows. You could have voted for Donald Trump twice. We don't care that you voted for Donald Trump twice. We just want to make sure you don't vote for his ass again now, because your life depends on it, and the future of women and your daughter's future, what a country looks like, depends on that vote. So you go in that ballot box and you cast that ballot between the privacy of you and your ballot. And that's who we want to talk to and get them to understand that and what's at stake and why it's all right. It's okay. No one's judging you for it. Right. Make the right decision.
Right. Exactly. So let me ask you this then, Tara, because Republicans have always called themselves the party of law and order. But right now, the presumptive nominee, Von Schitzenpants, is a convicted felon 34 times over. And they don't just defend him. They have completely abandoned the principle of law and order.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, who are they?
Who are Republicans?
Yeah, who are they today?
Today, the Republicans are a rapidly evolving fascist movement of hypocrites who are anti-democratic, who actually hate everything that makes America great, that poses an existential threat to the future of our democracy and our freedoms in this country. And I, as someone who spent almost 30 years as a card-carrying Republican, never in my life thought I would be uttering those types of descriptions of the Republican Party, the party of Reagan, of Lincoln, of Eisenhower. What the actual F? I mean, It has been really disheartening to see and alarming to see how quickly the party devolved into this cult of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, of all people, like, I mean, I understand cult movements happen all the time, and sometimes there's dynamic personalities, and this, I mean, throughout history, we've seen this happen. But then again, you could say the same about Hitler and Mussolini. I mean, what was special about them? But yet they were able to lead awful, horrible fascist movements, deadly fascist movements that led to a world war. So, I mean, the Republican Party today is a shell of what it was founded to be and what they claim to believe. I mean, they are everything they claim to despise, everything, and worse, and worse. And so they cannot be treated as a regular, just, counterparty to the Democrats. Before, you had two healthy parties. One side believed this, the other side believed that. You had healthy debate, and but we all believed in the fundamental stuff, which is great. That's fine. We need that. I wish we had that again. I want to argue about marginal tax rates again. I would love those conversations instead of these about, like, is our democracy going to go under? Or are we going to be sent to a camp, or internment camps, or jailed, or executed if Donald Trump had his way, because we aren't sufficiently obsequious to him. But that's not the case anymore. That's why the mainstream media is so frustrating to me at times, because they continue to cover Trump and MAGA and the Republicans like they're on equal footing with Democrats, and they're not.
All right, so we really have to break that down here, because they do not cover Joe Biden to the same extent that they covered Donald Trump. And I kind of understand it, being that I had lived that for several years. They don't cover Biden because it's not batshit crazy.
Right,
it's not
sexy,
exciting, right? It doesn't sort of, tickle your ass with a feather like reality television does. Yep. Technically, what Trump's campaign has always been is kind of like the mirror image of the Kardashians. It's become like a Kardashian campaign where every day someone's sleeping with somebody, someone's giving birth here or there, that there's something that's being said that's bombastic. There's actions that are being taken that are anti-American, anti-democratic. Yeah. And yet people are like, fuck yeah. It's like, I'm excited now because in my life is boring and I got absolutely nothing going on. And this is sort of like reality television. You're no longer watching, like Court Cam, or you're not watching the Kardashians or the Housewives. Now you're actually watching something that you can really participate in. You can participate in the election process. You know what? Fuck yeah. I'm going to vote for Mr. Kim Kardashian over here, with the blonde hair and the big tits. All right?
Yeah.
100%. And I can make a decision on what I want. And when Donald Von Shits and Pants tells you, and I'm not fucking around here, and I want my listeners and your listeners ultimately to hear me out on this, when he says that he's going to start putting people in internment camps, that he's going to start going after his political enemies using SEAL Team 6. I don't know why people have such short memories. Mm-hmm. That motherfucker did it to me. I was incarcerated. I was remanded back to prison off of a counterfeit document that his Department of Justice was demanding that I sign, and not to put out my first book, Disloyal. Make sure that nothing critical of him is either being written, said, not my friends, not my family. And when I refused, saying, hey, look, we got to tamp this down, it is clearly violative of my First Amendment constitutional right, I was automatically remanded off of a counterfeit document. That document doesn't even exist. I found the real document that I was supposed to sign. So when he tells you what he's going to do, take the shit out of your ears, all right? Put a little fucking Visine in your eyes and understand that this is exactly who he is and it's exactly what he's going to do. And to allow this individual to be, forgetting about the presumptive nominee, to one of our two political parties, but the potential president again, and to put America in this type of chaos because you don't like Joe Biden because he's not bombastic, because they say he's too old, even though Trump is only 2.5 years younger? Come on. It's time that we each take an active role, like what you're doing in Seneca Project. Take an active role and get your voice out there. Make sure you convince one person to join. Join our fight, because it's not just our fight, it's your fight.
That's right. That's absolutely right, Michael. All of what you said, all of that. It's in our ad, A Time for Choosing, our debut ad, we have a line in there where we say, come on, America, what the hell are we doing? Like, what the hell are we doing? Wake up, people. Like, why is Donald Trump even competitive? Why is he still able to even, walk around and go back to Capitol Hill to a hero's freaking welcome after he incited an insurrection that cost lives and injured hundreds of police officers and tried to have his vice president hung, for God's sakes? And now this guy is welcomed back, to the scene of the crime. Right. You've got to be kidding me!
And the speaker of the House
at us.
Yeah, and the speaker of the House to be harmed and so on. Hey, let me ask you this question, because it now makes me think about something. Because again, you've been on both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
Can you diagnose?
Never on the Trump side, just to be clear. I was a never Trumper from day one. I was not a convert.
I'm talking Republican, Democrat, though. So being that you're on both sides of the fence, Republican versus Democrat, can you do me a favor? And for my listeners, can you diagnose the pathology of the Republicans in Congress and these massive Republican donors, these mega billionaires who are bending over backwards to support a convicted felon who has already made anti-democratic statements, fascist statements about what he wants to do to this country? And again, I'm referring to, in this case, Donald J. Trump, not President Joe Biden.
Right. That's right. Well, I think there's a twofold answer to that. For Congress, I'll take that first. They made a political calculation, which at this point doesn't make sense, but it's still a political calculation, that aligning themselves with MAGA and Donald Trump is politically beneficial to them. They're cowards. They're politically craven. They see what happens if you step out of line. Then the MAGA mob is sicked on you and you lose. You'll lose your primary. And the first thing you learn in Political Science 101 as a first-year political science major like myself at GW, first thing you learn is that...
So what is Lumin? Lumin is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or you're burning carbs. And it gives you a tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, something I need badly, and even stress management. So let me tell you how Lumin works. All you have to do is you breathe into your Lumin first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fat or carbs. And then Lumin gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on the measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after your workouts and your meals so that you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumin will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. So here's what Lumin does. Lumin provides crucial insights and helpful guidance for your lifestyle. It requires effort, though, and it also requires a lifestyle change to achieve results. Let me be clear. Lumin is not just a weight loss tool. It's about understanding and improving your metabolic health. So let me also tell you why metabolic health matters. It matters because your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food that you eat into fuel that keeps you going. Because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, Optimum metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, and better sleep. Lumin gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so that you can keep up your energy and stave off cravings. So if you want to take the next step to improving your health, go right now to lumin.me/Cohen to get 15% off your Lumin. That's LUMEN.me/Cohen for 15% off your purchase. And thank you, Lumin, for sponsoring this episode.
Elected officials' number one priority is that they are single seekers of re-election because if they're not in office, they don't have access to power. So their entire existence is about keeping that power and access. So they made a calculation, a wrong one, I think, and at the expense of the good of the country, to align themselves with a malignant, narcissist, lunatic, incompetent person, cult leader, to maintain their own political power. Now, Donald Trump has been a loser ever since 2016. That was the last time he ever won anything. And Republicans, even though they won back the House, but barely, they were supposed to have a major red wave that didn't happen. And Donald Trump has been an albatross for the Republican Party. It's ruined it. Lindsey Graham, of all people, was the one who said, if we nominate this guy, it'll be the end of the Republican Party. Well, Lindsey Graham was right. But he was also one of the enablers that allowed it. Mm-hmm. But Lindsey Graham also said, when asked, you were best friends with John McCain. Donald Trump disparaged him, went after him, insulted his legacy as a hero in this country. And yet here you are basically up Donald Trump's ass. How do you explain the turnaround? And he said a very political, cynical answer. He said, I've never been more relevant. And that's a drug for people. That's intoxicating, the relevance and the access to power. So that's what it is for the people who are in Congress and why they continue to align themselves at the expense of the institution, at the expense of being, integrity, at the expense of pushing lies and conspiracy theories that are undermining our institutions in this country. All of that doesn't matter because they're trying to protect their own asses, which I think is pathetic. And that's why people hate politics. Now, for the big billionaires and these corporate donors, they think the rules don't apply to them. They don't care because they're they're looking at their own self-interest and they're like, we can buy this guy off and get what we want. Now,
but what is it that they want? Wait, Tara. What the fuck more could they want? Their boats are 400 fucking feet long. They have a fleet of airplanes. They have a slew of homes all over, not just the country, but the world. Because God forbid you stay at a hotel, like if you're going to ski in Vail. Nope. Right. They have a 50, 60, 80, $100 million house there. They want to go to Florida. They go to their estate in Florida because there's no taxes. So, right, there's no city or state tax like in New York. They keep an apartment here in New York. Right? Yep. That's also God knows what. Then they have their home, they're for Christmas, for 10 days or 2 weeks, they want to be in St. Bart's. They have a house in St. Bart's. These folks have homes. They have every toy that you could imagine, and they have enough money that they can't spend in 100 lifetimes, even if they spend like drunken sailors. But they want more, and they're willing to risk America and our freedom and democracy for what? For their pocketbook, for their bank account?
Yeah, I think that I don't begrudge people who are successful in a capitalist society. Good for you guys, right? If you made that money honestly and, more power to you, that's partially what makes America great. The problem here is that then it becomes a zero-sum game to maintain it all. And they're like, okay, well, I don't want anyone coming for what I've got. And I don't want to pay any more than I have to. I'm going to try and game the system as much as I can to get more or to maintain what I have. And at some point, you have to stop, to your point, and say, at what cost? At what cost to the country?
Okay. Wait. Time.
Yeah.
Quick time out. All right. Okay. Do they not understand, right? Because many of these insanely rich people, and when I'm talking about like the 100th of the 1%ers that really control 70% of all funds in this country, do they not understand? Because they're not stupid. I think that they are blind to the fact that if Donald Trump becomes the authoritarian that he wants to be, that he will take their money the same way that Mohammed bin Salman took his royal relatives' money. Do they not understand? Elon Musk on day number 2, not day number 1, but day number 2. Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, all of them, right? Bill Gates, all of them, Bezos. All of these guys think, oh yeah, Donald's going to be good to me because I was good to him. Fuck you. You have no idea what you're talking about. All right? Yeah. Donald Trump will turn around, have you all brought to Mar-a-Lago. They'll put you on the floor over in the ballroom that's there. He'll do exactly what MBS did, and he will have you sign over the vast majority of your wealth. Okay? Make no bones about it. And the reason that he will do that is because he can. That's what authoritarians do.
I think you make a good point here, Michael. I've said this before because you're not the first person to ask me that question about, like, you know, I've been in rooms for fundraisers with very moneyed people in the past. And some folks have asked a similar question. Like, I don't understand how some of our friends and neighbors here in this world could still support him, or they're disengaged. They're like, you know, we don't have to worry about that. You know, what's the point? And I say to them, listen, I think there is a lack of imagination of how this can impact them in a negative way. People get arrogant. They think that they have enough money to go to one of their 10 houses somewhere else, that if shit goes south in America, well, they'll just go to their house in New Zealand, or, you know, to their chalet in France or Switzerland, you know. And it's like, it's not going to be that easy. You don't think Donald Trump will come for you too? Of course he will. He's not coming,
but he's not coming for them personally. He just wants their money. And any institution that does banking in the United States, he will seize that money. And I don't understand.
Well, I don't know what's there to stop him.
Market, right? There's nothing to stop him. Which kind of brings me to my next question to you. Does the rank and file of the Republican Party understand that they are headed towards authoritarianism? Do they not see that? Why is it you see it? Why is it that I see it? Why is it that so many of my listeners see it, but the rank and file Republican Party refuses to acknowledge it?
Because we're not blinded by political ambition, and they are. And so some of these people that are getting into this, like I said, politics is also, cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug, but so is the access to power and relevance. Some people, their whole lives are fueled by that. They get a taste of it and now they can't kick the habit. And so they don't care what it takes. They will do whatever it is. They'll sell their mothers down the river to maintain that power. And that's why they have not paid enough of a political price yet for their support of Donald Trump. They need to be vanquished politically. That's the only way political figures change or move. It's when it costs them enough. And you would think that the country has paid enough of a price already with Donald Trump and MAGA. But for them personally, they have not. People don't change until they pay enough of a price. You know that. You look at the price you paid, and you know what I mean? To snap you out of it. It's like, and we try to avoid, you know, we're hard-headed beings, human beings, a lot of times. My husband says a hard head makes a soft behind, you know, and that's what's happening with these Republicans. And it's like, okay, how much further down?
Your husband is a wise man.
Yes, he is. Yes. And so, you know, I mean, how much more is it going to take? But I know that we have to vanquish them. It's not just beat them. We need to beat them, but they have to be beaten so that they are licking their wounds and go, this isn't worth it anymore. Or else they're not going to change. It can't keep being this close. But listen, the goal is 50+1 to at least deny them power. But the next step is to actually break their will so that they can stop going down this road. Now, there are some who actually believe this shit. That's the scary part. There are some that are actually like into this ideology, the Charlie Kirks of the world, and the Turning
The
Point
MAGA
USA
Mike
guys.
Johnsons, the MAGA
Like,
Mike
yes,
Johnsons.
they have like a religious belief that this is a calling from God for them to do this. And that's a whole different perversion of Christianity and political power and all of that. But when you start dealing with the calling from God stuff, then now it's bigger than the Constitution. The Bible and their calling from God, it supersedes our Constitution. That's very dangerous. You can believe whatever you want. That's the freedom of our country here. But when you start implementing that and foisting that on the American people through policy and government, now we have a problem. And we're facing that element of this Christian nationalism, which is a new element here because they were always there, but didn't have the kind of proximity to power that they have now. And it's that's a scary prospect because they also think that violence is okay too. They rationalize all of it. And it's tough to talk to people like that.
But let me be clear about something too. It's not just Christian nationalism that these crazy fucking maniacs are talking about. It's white Christian nationalism. You could be Christian, but as a black woman, you ain't welcome.
No.
You're not welcome. All right.
No.
And
sure not.
This is not a joke. First of all, when you hear people like MAGA Mike Johnson saying, or you hear Trump, with his people saying, I want to see America return to a white Christian nationalist country. There's two problems with that. One, America was never a white Christian nationalist country. Okay. And two, what do you do with the people who aren't white, Christian, and don't believe in that nationalistic ideology, right? So, what happens there? What happens to black men and black women? What happens to Jews? What happens to Hindus or Buddhists, right?
Or Muslims. We know what happens to them.
I mean, what happens to them?
Muslim ban on day one, remember? Crazy.
I mean, we're having an Inquisition again? The Great Inquisition is going to come back in the year 2025? Let me tell you something. I really wish that more people would start talking the way that you and I are talking because it's pretty fucking scary. And, when I talk about these people and the reason why, now, Tara, because we've had this conversation both on this podcast previously as well as just privately. I don't believe in polls. Right? You may remember that CNN thing when I shared, what polls, all of them says who. And of course, I was right. So it became a pretty funny meme, except for the fact that I was correct. I don't believe in polls. But Biden,
that is still a good meme, Michael, regardless, the says who, that will live on forever.
I have a few of me that seem to live on.
I know.
But Joe Biden does appear to be up in the polls, especially after the guilty verdict in New York, the election fraud hush money trial. What's your take on where the race is right now?
So I think that you're right about polls. I mean, the polling industry has been broken for a while, and but we need to pay attention to trends. And so, because polls are only a snapshot in time, and frankly, they get weird about telling a pollster how they really feel. So Simon Rosenberg has been someone on the Democratic side as a pollster and a political analyst who has always been a bit more optimistic than the average. And he was one of the first people to predict that the red wave would not happen in 2022, particularly after the Dobbs decision. And he was right. He was right. And he also seems to believe that there are a lot more people out there that are supportive of Joe Biden and will come home to vote for Joe Biden as we get closer to the election, because people really aren't paying attention. We say this over and over again, but it's true. We are very engaged people in politics. Most Americans are not as engaged as we are on a daily basis. They're actually living real lives. So, I think that that President Biden needs to run a really aggressive campaign as if he's running from behind. That's what he needs to do, because he potentially is running from behind, right? And this election is going to come down to 5 to 7 states. That's it. What happens in New York and California or Texas, Doesn't freaking matter. Matters on congressional levels, obviously for the House, which I think Democrats will take back. Senate's a little dicier, but the presidential race comes down to Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Those three are must wins for Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Next here is Arizona, Nevada, and then you have North Carolina and Georgia. But that's where this election is going to be won or lost. And so we need to make sure that the people, the voters in those states, again, understand what's at stake here. So the polling, obviously, it's a little too close for comfort for me, but I do see movement in the right direction as President Biden has been going on offense. The ad that they put out this week, pointing out that Donald Trump is a convicted felon and asking America, like, look at the difference here. Keep that up. Yeah. Offense wins elections. Defense may win championships in sports, but offense wins elections. And that's what the Biden camp needs to keep doing. They need to lean into this binary choice and what the stakes are and freaking keep their foot on the damn gas from now until November.
Yeah, and then we watch as Donald Trump shits all over Milwaukee, despite the fact that Wisconsin is going to be a major player. It's one of the states. But my real question
is, he tells you how he really feels. Again, he always tells you how he really feels.
He tells you, right? Why you don't have to argue with what he says. You want to argue with what Michael Cohen says, what Tara Setmayer says? Argue, that's fine. But why are you arguing contrary to what the guy himself is saying? Makes no sense. Here's my question to you, though. The numbers are coming out in the swing states, and I'm going to use as an example Pennsylvania and let's say Michigan, that say that Biden is significantly losing black voters. First of all, do you think that that's true? And if so, why? And more importantly, how do you get them back?
So I'm when they say that like Biden's losing the black vote significantly, we need to put that in perspective.
Most of you know that I have some cardiac issues. So supporting my heart health has been one of my top priorities, which is why I've been trying to keep my body moving by getting more steps in and trying Pilates. Something I absolutely hate doing is worrying about nutrition and supplements. I mean, seriously, who has time for all that? So we often think living a more heart-healthy life means making big, unsustainable changes. With Superbeats heart chews, you can get daily blood pressure support in just 2 tasty chews a day. And they even promote heart-healthy energy without the stimulants. Paired with a healthy lifestyle, the antioxidants in Superbeats are clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective. That's 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than a healthy lifestyle alone. Superbeats heart chews have been an invaluable tool in my health journey. I mean, I feel great. I feel great knowing that I'm doing something to support my heart health without having to worry about some complex routine. The energy boost from them is noticeable almost immediately, and I love that they don't give me the jitters. So let's face it, we all know that downing cup after cup of coffee every day is not the right answer for healthy energy, especially long term. Effective and clinically studied from Superbeats, the #1 doctor, pharmacist, and cardiologist recommended beet brand for cardiovascular health support. That's necessary. So double your potential with Superbeats heart chews and get a free 30-day supply of Superbeats heart chews on all bundles and get a load of this, 15% off your first order by going to getsuperbeats.com and using code Cohen. That's getsuperbeats, GetSuperbeets.com and use code Cohen for that 15% off. That's getsuperbeats.com, code Cohen.
Joe Biden still has over 80% support in the black community. 80%. Most people would take that and be happy with that. What the problem is that in 2020, he won 92% of the black vote. So given how close the margins have been recently with elections, that couple of percentage points matters. It's something to pay attention to. It cannot be ignored. So I think the Biden coalition is struggling from a couple of things, right? The Biden coalition from 2020. And it goes back to, again, that Joe Biden isn't a bombastic guy. He's out there doing like presidenting, doing the adult thing of governing. Governing is boring. It's supposed to be, but it's working. The country is actually in great shape by a lot of metrics, especially with the economy. The fact that the perception that the country isn't in great shape and that the economy sucks, like the complete opposite of where we are, is a messaging problem. It's a problem that the Biden camp hasn't really figured out. And in the Black community, you have the issue with Gaza. And because there's a lot of folks in the Black community that feel a certain kinship with the way that Palestinians are treated and the way that Black Americans are treated in America. So there is an element, especially of the younger Black generations, that are not happy with the president over the handling of Gaza and Israel. The answer to that is, well, if they care about that issue, electing Donald Trump ain't the way to get any resolution, because he wants to level Gaza and turn it into beachfront property. So they need to really think about, do they think they're going to be able to protest peacefully in America, things that are important to them, Black Lives Matter, or, pro-Palestinian, whatever their position is. They think Donald Trump's going to put up with that. They need to remind themselves what happened in 2020 with George Floyd and and the Black Lives Matter protests in Lafayette Square. So I think that they need to, as the election gets closer, make a decision about what's more important to them. The other issue too, which is a part of this that is a little more taboo, is that you're seeing the Black support that's leaving Biden and going, maybe toward Trump or RFK Jr., which is a whole nother, I just don't understand that appeal outside of his name. It's because there's a certain amount of toxic masculinity and misogyny within the Black community. Black men have some resentment and are upset about certain societal things. And they look at Donald Trump and they think that they know he's a strong guy. They like it. The machismo, the apprentice persona that's created. Now, Donald Trump is the complete opposite of all of that, as you know, Michael, and I've said many times, but they're attracted to that. And that's a bigger societal question within the Black community of why that is. But that's where you're seeing the softer support. It's really not with Black women who have carried the support for Democrats and for Joe Biden over 95% in 2020. It's a Black man problem. And so, but the Biden camp cannot ignore it. They need to get back into the community, send their surrogates out there into Detroit and into Philly and Milwaukee and in these crucial places, and remind them that Donald Trump doesn't think that your vote matters, that, all the votes in these cities are the corrupt ones. If you notice that it was Atlanta, Philly, Detroit, Milwaukee, these are the places that Donald Trump claimed the votes were illegitimate. Oh, what do they all have in common? They're all Black cities, predominantly Black cities, cut the shit. We already know.
Tara,
so they have to get that message back out to them and remind them, like, this guy's not really for you. If you want to vote for him, that's fine. But let's stick to the facts here.
You know what kind of upsets me is I acknowledge what you're saying, that a lot of the young Black, especially the Black men, they are angry with Joe Biden. I've heard this personally. They're angry with Joe Biden over what's going on in Gaza. But I think a big problem is also the fact that a lot of the young Black community, they don't even understand the fight that has given them the ability and the rights that they have, because there has not been a group of people that has stood by African-American leaders in the civil rights movement more than American Jews. It's factual, not Palestinian Jews. And by the way, I want to be clear about something. I am pro-Israel. I am also anti the killing that's going on in Palestine. I have friends who are Palestinian. I don't want to see any civilian killed anywhere, not just Palestine. I don't want to see the civilians in Ukraine or the civilians in Russia, for that matter.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue.
It's very complicated. But my point is, I don't believe that a lot of the young black youth understand how the civil rights movement was even formed. It was American Jews that walked hand in hand, individuals, right, with the black community, individuals and groups like the Anti-Defamation League actively supported the movement against legalized racial injustice. All right. You have, on top of that, there were many prominent Jewish leaders. You have people like Rabbi Heschel. You have guys like Jack Greenberg, who marched alongside figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and contributed. They are, in part, a reason for the success of the landmark legal victories in civil rights. So before they turn around and they, they jump to an opposite side, right? How about remember the fact that it was actually Jewish individuals that helped, along with African Americans, in order to even create the NAACP. Right, I mean, they know all of these companies.
Even before the white Christians, by the way, it was the white Christian church that was lukewarm in their support for civil rights in the South in a lot of places. And if anyone's ever read Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail, he has some very choice words for the white Christian church and their role in not fully supporting the efforts of the civil rights movement, where, you know, the Jewish community was front and center, to your point, in instrumental in a lot of aspects of the civil rights movement as partners. And I hear you, and I think that there is a lack of understanding of the history and context of that. I know I was in Israel a couple of years ago, and it was during Hanukkah, and we had we were all together and we were at a rabbi's house, and he had pictures of him marching with Martin Luther King in the 60s, and we talked about that because I was there with a black group of supportive of Israel. And it was really heartening to see that living history right there, to your point of that relationship. But no, I hear you. And there's a lot of work to be done in that area. There's a lot of lack of understanding of context and history for a lot of things, with a lot of voting blocks in this country, that we need to do a better job of educating them. But that's why we have elections. That's why we have campaigns. That's why we have get out the vote efforts. I mean, it's going to take a coalition effort of a lot of those things to get those folks to vote in their best interest. And that's what Joe Biden.
Interesting. Yep, it's interesting because remember in like 1964 in Mississippi, you had a black activist by the name of James Chaney who was murdered by the Ku Klux Klan. All right.
Yep.
What unfortunately many of these young people do not understand, or that they just forget that there were two Jewish boys that were with them, Michael Shermer and Andrew Goodman. Remember, it was, again, these two boys, along with James, were murdered by the KKK, understanding that the KKK hates you as much as they hate me. And so before you start jumping to another side, remember, it wasn't Israel that came over the fence, that decided to drive through the barriers, that decided and kill over 1,000 innocent young Jewish people who are out there enjoying a music festival. So when you want to start thinking about that, you think of Coachella, think of and I don't wish any of this stuff to happen to anybody, right? I'm just mentioning it. It's a music festival, and all of a sudden you have a group of people armed to the teeth that have been planning a raid for a year, right? And they take hostages, they murder people, they kill babies, elder people, they don't
kidnapped
care. Light people on
raped
fire,
and tortured women. It's awful, and people forget this part.
Do they forget the part that they cut one woman's breast off and used it to play soccer? I mean, just think about think about this before you turn around and you want to just attack, simply Israel or Joe Biden for standing by Israel. I mean, I really, I hate that people forget. They forget facts and they forget history.
Yeah, well, we live, unfortunately, in a very fact-free society a lot of times, and people don't want to hear it. They hear what they want to hear, and they live in their own bubbles, and they have confirmation bias. And then we have a lot of resources that have misinformation and disinformation, and we're combating all of those things. So I think that as we wrap up this interview, people should remember that it takes informed citizens like us to help inform our other fellow citizens to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction. And that's what we need to do. That's what Seneca is about. We're targeting women, and making sure we understand and explain and speak to people, not preach at them, not yell at them. We're just speaking to each other to understand the stakes and speaking frankly and honestly. And like I said, coming from a place of solidarity and unity, because it's going to take all of us in order to beat back this scourge of MAGA and defeat Donald Trump and reelect Joe Biden. So we hope folks will support us.
Yeah, but before we split, I do have one last question that I want to ask you, because today, and we're recording on Juneteenth, right? Yeah. It's June 19th today. Tell me, if you would, from your perspective, how does it feel to have this tragic part of Black history finally recognized almost 100 years later? Almost 100 years later, we're finally acknowledging Juneteenth, federal holiday today. And I cannot stand, it pisses me off. It really does. And, you could hear it in the voice. I get angered. I get emotional over stuff like this. There are people who make fun of Juneteenth. Like, what the fuck is this about? Juneteenth, it's almost like, it's another federal holiday. Nobody's coming into work. Banks are closed. This is closed. That's closed. Today is an extremely, extremely important day in a tragic mistake made in America by America. Yes. Right? Specifically white Christian nationalists. But tell me, how does it feel to finally, after 100 years, or almost 100 years, to have this day recognized?
Yeah, we can thank President Biden for finally ushering this into federal law. I mean, the fight for Juneteenth becoming a national holiday has been ongoing for a very long time, similar to the Martin Luther King Day holiday and how long that took. The fact that there were Black Americans who were unaware of the fact that the Emancipation Proclamation had happened and that they were free, and it took 2 years. Well, I think it was 2 years before it got to them in Texas. Is an outrage, an absolute outrage. And so for all of the sins of America, and slavery being the worst, it's hard to imagine that people would not be celebrating the fact that this is really about freedom. We talk about freedom so much in America. It's a cornerstone of our identity as Americans, that this is kind of the 4th of July for Black Americans. And it's the least we could do. I feel like it's the least we can do. And I'm grateful that President Biden and the advocates for Juneteenth have been successful. And this is a worthy federal holiday, more worthy than Christopher Columbus Day, that's for sure. No disrespect to my Italian American friends out there. I have Italian blood too. I'm biracial, but let's, come on, let's put it in perspective here. So, and if you don't know about Juneteenth, Google it. Google it, learn about it.
But on that same thought, we just finished talking about the Black Americans. Now, again, a small number, and I take your point perfectly, a small number shifting away from Joe Biden in favor of Donald Trump. Do you really think that under a Donald Trump administration that Juneteenth would ever have become a reality? We know that it became a reality under the Biden administration. Shouldn't that alone be enough for them to say, I wouldn't vote for Donald Trump for all the money in the world? Look, because as you just said so well, that this is like the 4th of July for Black people, for Black Americans.
You're always going to have that small percentage of people who vote against their own interests. It happens in every demographic, and Black Americans are no different. So should it be enough? Yeah, it should. A lot of other things that Donald Trump has said and done as an affront toward Black Americans, from his history of racism with housing to what he said about how you'd never have a Black man handle his money in casinos, to the accusations of using the N-word in his family from his own, niece, Mary Trump, who is part of our Seneca Project, by the way. We love Mary.
To his refusal to allow... To his refusal to allow on, I think, season 1, Randall to win because he was Black and gay.
Right. I mean, all of the things. There's right. It's the record is indisputable, but yet people will rationalize a lot of things for a lot of other reasons. So, well, we're not going to solve that today, Michael. But
no, we are not.
We will. That means the conversation continues, and I always appreciate you having me.
Yes, it does, and I thank you. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for you, and thank you to the Seneca Project. You know that I'm a big supporter as well. So please follow follow Tara, follow the Seneca Project. One more time, just give the handle on it at.
Yes, it's at Seneca Project US. That's our handle on Twitter and Instagram and Threads. We're still standing up our Facebook page, but that's where you can find us there. And our website is senecaproject.us.
Thank you, Tara. Love you. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Michael. Likewise, my friend.
Bye.